Got one. Mark, are the allegations true that you are secretly a lizard? I'm gonna have to go.
Oh my gosh, it's another special day in the neighborhood. It's we're back for another episode of the Strike to Gamers podcast. It has been an intense week, I'll have to say, everybody. Lots of stuff has been going on. Because the news never ends, even if you want it to.
Yeah.
Even if you threaten it. It'll keep on happening. Because that's how life goes. Regardless, Jason.
I always like those stories. That like the news back in the day broadcast like nothing happened today and just moved on.
That did
like,
happen.
Oh,
Silver,
if only
by
we
the
could
way.
go back to those.
You go far enough back, like, and really, in reality, like, stuff happened, but there were days where they would report pretty much nothing would happen that day.
Yeah.
In the interconnected
On this
cyber
day
world, everything
in
happens.
1840 whatever, they're like nothing happened. It's like, oh, if only.
Well, despite the major earth-shattering things that have been going on, Jason, how's your week?
Just been busy. I'm trying to think of anything that I really did this week. I've been reading Lord of the Rings again. I read that periodically because it's just such a great book, and I needed to, rinse my brain out from the rot that Hollywood's been trying to cram into it.
Sometimes you go.
I'd
Well, it's like you watch a bad show, and sometimes you need like a palate cleanser, so you gotta like watch something good in the interim.
Yep, exactly.
In your case.
So there's that. I haven't been playing anything really recently or watching a lot of movies recently because I've just been reading. It's been one of those, like I said, it's been one of those happy instances where I could just lose myself in something I've already read that I already know that I enjoy and then that I know will just be good, and I can pretend that things like War of the Rohirrim and Rings of Power don't exist.
They do. They still do. It's
Dang
funny.
it, you're not supposed to shatter my reality like that.
Well, now that I think it's like as big as Lord of the Rings was, we've had a lot of really bad Lord of the Rings related content. Like, we all forget that Gollum happened. Gollum was a thing.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gollum was a thing.
So devastatingly bad that I think it collapsed that company.
What I don't understand is why people seem to think that this character from the Lord of the Rings would make a good, compelling protagonist when, for all intents and purposes, they're not liked.
Well, I don't
It's
know.
like, let's make a game surrounding Gollum. Well, why? Gollum's not a creature that I would care to find out more about. He's despicable and evil. I don't really want to play him, so
It's like making a movie or a game about like a fentanyl addict, and it's like, well, he's not that interesting.
Yeah.
I know
mean,
nothing about the game, but I picture it being like it's starting off, just kind of playing out his story. It's like press X to bite off Deagle's finger.
Mash
Press
the
E to strangle your cousin.
yeah, mash the B button to strangle your cousin.
Yeah. And then it's like catch the fish, and it turns into like a fishing sim.
Yeah.
You get the fish and then beat the fish against the rock.
That's how I
And the
imagine
thing
it
is
going
that
down
you-
when I strangle you, Silver. Just mash B to strangle Silver.
Mash B.
That just appears in your head like a psychopath. Press B.
The
Press
thing
B.
is that
I see the button
there are
prompts.
games that can be successful in the Lord of the Rings universe. There was, War in the North. There was the two,
Battle for Middle Earth.
the Ranger
Shadow
ones.
Mordor.
Yeah, Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War, that were just both exceptional games.
Battle for Middle Earth.
So it can be done.
Conquest.
Battle
Oh,
for
yeah,
Middle Earth, Lord of the Rings Conquest. There were
Yeah.
a lot. There was a massive dry spell of Lord of the Rings gaming content. Lest we forget, we had
Lego.
the 3 Hobbit movies come out, and we had 1 Lego game. And the Lego game
Yep.
didn't even include the final movie. It was intended to be added
Right.
later as like a DLC that was never added because they never made it. So the game actually
But
ends
the thing is,
at the end of the second movie.
oh, that sucks.
Because I've beaten it. I've beaten
The
the
thing
Lego
is that-
Hobbit.
that they have made good games, and there's room to expand, because War in the North, that's almost spun from whole cloth. So
That was a
you know,
long time
it
ago. That was
just is-
PlayStation 3 era. It's been
Yeah.
a
I love that
while.
game.
It's been a while. I mean, the last real quality stuff we had was just Shadow of War, Shadow of Mordor sort of thing. But that was a while ago still. We're talking years back. We didn't
Yeah.
get anything since The Hobbit came out. We got 1 game for The Hobbit. When Lord of the Rings came out, we had multiple games, multiple stuff, strategy games and action stuff, like across the board. Everybody forgets the console Two Towers and Return of the King games that were amazing action games. They had that Final Fantasy Tactics-esque Lord of the Rings game for the PSP that came out.
oh yeah,
Yeah. There was the PlayStation 2 RPG that played like a Final Fantasy game that was Lord of the Rings based. Was it called The Third Age? I have that.
I don't think I ever heard of that one.
No, it actually, I have it. It actually plays a lot like a Final Fantasy game where it's like turn-based. You have abilities and stuff. It's pretty fun, and you play through as these secondary characters. You're playing through like events of the movies, and you actually it gets really hard when we get to Pelennor Fields because it's just constant battles. But it happened, but it just died, and now that we're getting new Lord of the Rings content, it's terrible. Like, we haven't had good Lord of the Rings content in a while. I mean, War of the Rohirrim was sort of our hope that we were going to get something new. We didn't get anything new. We're still waiting on the Hobbit related farming sim that's been delayed or something that looks DEI filled to the brim.
Aw, I want to be Farmer Maggot and just scare the little hobbits off of my lawn or something.
Yeah, it's irrationally DI. It's diverse as all get out.
I
But
just want Farmer Maggot POV Lord of the Rings.
just angrily shaking your fist at Pippin and Merry as they steal your crop.
Yeah. Send out the dogs.
Send out the dogs. You find broken carrots and stuff.
Yep.
Regardless, what have I been playing? I've been playing some Total War Warhammer 2 to try and clean up some achievements. I've been playing Battlefront 2. I went back and been playing some of because the multiplayer is still active. Funny enough. I watched Dark Matter on Apple TV. I've watched various other things. Yeah. I mean, I watched the new Wallace and Gromit. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, I need to watch that one. I've always
Wallace and
enjoyed
Gromit on Netflix.
the Wallace and Gromit stuff.
It feels like old Wallace and Gromit, I'm going to be honest.
That's
My
awesome.
gosh. I've
It's
seen
just-
that forever.
It's just classic Wallace and Gromit, and it picks up like where the other story left off. Funny enough, it's just another Wallace and Gromit adventure. So if you're into those like classic sort of children's British movies that have been around for decades and decades, I remember being in like middle school and aware of Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is that Wallace and Gromit started as shorts. So there's a bunch of shorts that they did, and then the Aardman Films, was it? Got enough money to start branching out into feature films, and they did like Chicken Run and Flushed
Pirates.
Away, and then they started going to do more of the
Pirates
Wallace and Gromit
movies.
stuff. Yeah.
But they had Wallace and
did-
Gromit
and-
animated movies a long time ago.
Yeah.
Like years and years and years
And
ago.
they're good.
Despite that, Silver, how have things been going?
Cool.
She's
I've
been
experienced
mega
no
sick.
joy this week.
Well, don't come here for that.
I know. What was I thinking?
She was thinking she would get sympathy from us, and we just laughed.
School has started for Silver again, and she's been the mega sick.
Yeah, I'm dying. I still can't breathe through my nose. I feel like I sound weird.
You do sound a little stuffy.
I don't know.
Oh, great.
You sound normal as far as I can tell.
Or is it's just my voice?
It's just your voice. Your terrible voice. Well, so she has nothing but despair to share with the rest of us, as usually happens.
Yeah.
But we have a special podcast. Every podcast is a special podcast, if we're all going to be honest. But this is an even more special podcast. And I was trying to figure out where we were going to start. And I think we're going to start with the wildfires in California. Now, everybody has been talking about the wildfires in California perpetually. So I don't want to be this.
Yeah.
Just to retread exactly what this podcast is about, we are not a political podcast. So for the intents and purposes of this podcast, we're going to not talk about, like everybody else has been talking about, incompetence in dealing with the fires from the local political authorities and stupid things that have been said. All of that's been covered by everybody else. But we do talk about pop culture and media. And the reason why the podcast or the fire is being brought up is the fire is essentially happening right in the heart of Hollywood. Now, not necessarily in Hollywood exactly, though there was a small fire nearby the Hollywood sign. But because that the fire has cascaded through a few specific places, Malibu, the Palisades, and Santa Monica, why is that significant in any regard to Hollywood? Well, that's where all the celebrities live.
Yeah.
Basically, people who work in Hollywood, do film and movie and TV and whatnot, they all live in these areas. The Palisades, Santa Monica, Malibu. They all live around here. And essentially, this fire... See, maybe I should backtrack before we get too deep. Despite the fact that this podcast might have some disagreements with people in Hollywood, their politics and the things that they're putting out, and the fact that we hate most of it, at no point does this podcast advocate or celebrate the burning down of people's houses. It is hard to be terribly sympathetic when a lot of these people have millions and millions of dollars, especially when we have disasters that aren't as remotely covered as the Hollywood fires are in places like Georgia and Florida and stuff when we have hurricanes. So it's kind of ironic that I remind myself of the it's a wretched hive of scum and villainy, and ironically the place is burning down. Now it's a myriad of reasons as to why it's burning down we will not get into here. That being said, even people who I disagree with politically, or at least with the content that they put out, I wish them well across the board. So, now that I've done my due diligence and trying to pretend like I'm not a piece of crap celebrating the damage done to a bunch of celebrities, because this podcast, it's funny, this podcast ironically has had multiple episodes where we're like, Hollywood's burning down because of everything is bad and the all the content that's produced is bad, and then they had the what was it, the contract negotiation where they went on strike and stuff, and Disney's been
the
doing
writers
terrible.
strikes, yeah.
It's just now, unironically, it actually is burning down, and I thought for a minute we might go over the vast amount of celebrities that have actually been affected. Go away ad by this, which is a lot of people. John Goodman, I think Billy Crystal lost his house. Eugene Levy, Steven Spielberg, Ben Affleck is nearby. I think most of these people down in here have been evacuated. But I knew there have been some big name celebrities. James Woods lost his house. And he recently renovated it with the money he got from Oppenheimer. And it burned down.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, James Woods, ironically, removed his name from Oppenheimer because he didn't want it to affect the success of the film because he was a producer on it. And he's got a lot of political attention because he's a right-wing individual. Anna Faris, or Anna Farts, as I always remember her. And the fires have been absurdly devastating. Eugene Levy. The Dreyfuses, let's see, Julia Louis-Dreyfus and Brad Hall. Anthony Hopkins. Yeah, Billy Crystal. I guess this is his home. Yeah, John Goodman. It's absurd. The fire has been insane. It was the biggest part of why the fires have gotten out of control has been the strong winds that have been blowing embers across the valleys. And it's just been sparking everything, as well as lack of fire preparedness and no water and what have you. So the big question is, when it comes to the concerns of this podcast, what does this get affect long term? Because Hollywood hasn't exactly been on its feet lately. Whether or not this is going to have a good effect down the road as far as content coming out is going to be hard to say.
I mean, it'll probably have some effect. They might have to.
They already haven't been doing
put a
well.
halt on
That's the problem.
What was that?
They already haven't been doing well, Jason.
That's true. I just meant the stuff that's coming out. It may not affect the content as far as what they're putting in their movies and stuff, but I assume that it would have some effect on, they can't film stuff because everything's on fire, so there's going to be a lot of delays and things like that.
And it has been an extensive world-altering fire. Like, it is all over the LA area, and it's been pretty devastating. Excuse me. So, sympathies to those who are involved. And hopefully things go well. There's a million more things that could talk about this fire. which would be politically motivated, which I don't want to do. Because it all goes down through like the incompetence of how poorly it was handled.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, it has actually affected a huge amount of Hollywood of people personally. There have been deaths. The last count I saw was 10, but I think it's higher than that. Millions and probably billions of dollars in damage. Hilariously, one story you might find interesting. Apparently, yesterday, Universal Studios decided to open. So people were visiting Universal Studios, and I assume sitting on roller coasters, looking out across the valley, seeing houses burn down.
Oh gosh.
That seems a bit tone deaf.
Yeah, kind of odd that the place opened. I know it shut down on the 8th, but it reopened around on the 10th. So I think yesterday. The fires have threatened to burn down, famed landmarks, and is burning across the board. There have been a lot. See, it makes me sound douchey, but it's been difficult to have. How do I put this? There was a quote, I think, that, well, it's at the end of this podcast, but essentially it was like, I lost my house and everything, but at least my wine collection is okay.
Oh.
Or what was like, the fire burned down my helipad, this sort of thing. It's like, oh,
Yep.
yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
I'm sorry.
it's watching a fire ravage through some of the wealthiest people in this country. That's all I'm saying. All right. So, however you want to feel about that, once again, sympathies. It's hard to be terribly sympathetic to people who can replace those things a lot easier than the average person.
Well, we've talked about this a little bit in the past, where the celebrities' response to COVID, and just how out of touch it made them sound.
Yeah.
And this kind of is one of those things where, like you said, sympathy where it is due, but it's very hard to hold sympathy for someone who, if your life and stuff burned down like theirs does,
No one would care.
theirs is right now. Yeah, it's like my house burns down and it's maybe a blip on the news, maybe, but only local, and I can't as easily replace my lost stuff. And so, like you said, it is hard to have that sympathy, but it's one of those things where we wish them sympathy the same.
Right. I mean, a lot of people lost, and once again, it's not just wealthy. There are a lot of average people who lost homes.
But they're not going
this
to put a website up to all the average people who lost their homes and say all these average people lost their homes. They're just going to tell us about all the wealthy people that lost their homes, and it's like, oh,
no, I agree.
I'm sorry, but let's move on.
Well, and a lot of people had their fire insurance canceled like a week or two before the fires happened, which was suspicious.
Oh,
and then
that sucks.
Biden showed up, and they're like, well, who's going to pay to fix everything? And Biden said that the federal government will. And I'm like, first of all, you're going to pay for everything? You're just going to replace everybody's houses just at will because the federal government's just going to do it? Like, how much sympathy
Oh my god.
did the people in Florida have with the hurricane? How much sympathy did all these other, and now you're just going, we're going to do sweeping recovery because they're really important people? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, pretty much.
Not to be
at least
cynical
that's what
about
it
the
feels like.
situation, but good Lord. Now we're just gonna,
Yeah.
all right. No longer symbolically, but literally, Hollywood is burning down. But sympathy to everybody, including those who I dislike. Hopefully things will go well for them. And they'll be able to recover some stuff. I read a story where Billy Crystal was really upset that they lost like all of their family memorabilia because he's lived in that house since like 1979. He's like, I raised my kids and grandkids in that house, and we've just lost everything. I saw a video of Dennis Quaid pulling stuff out of their house and running it to the car, and then like a news reporter following him back and forth trying to ask him questions. And I was like, let him evacuate his house. Let the poor man get the stuff out of his house, Dennis Quaid.
See, I've always liked Billy Crystal. He's always seemed like just a regular person to me. I don't know how true that is, but this interaction here where he was more concerned about the memorabilia that he lost that was associated with family.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that impresses me about him. And always has.
I'm currently watching a show he's in on Apple TV. It's like a horror show. It's interesting. He plays it straight. He's not funny at all.
I would hope so.
Yeah, it's
a
weird
can do horror
show.
comedy, but
It's quite slow, but is interesting nonetheless. At any rate, the other big major turning news, which I'm a lot more cynical about, is the stuff we got out of Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. I don't know if you guys are aware of what happened.
A little bit.
Steer clear from Facebook.
Yes. Well, Mark Zuckerberg came out with a video, and I have said video here available for us to react to. Large changes are coming to Facebook, everybody. Let's take a listen.
I want to talk about something important today because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram.
Before we get
Did
any
he
further,
say fruit?
free expression?
Free expression, okay.
Why would I say fruit?
I don't know. It just sounded really odd. And I'm like, why did he say fruit?
See, you're doing the thing that my hard of hearing father does, where he can't understand what you're saying. And he's like, did you just say blah, blah, blah? And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I said. Why would I say that? It's like, why would you jump to the... Anyway. No need to bring in minor personal grievances. The reason why I stopped it, and here's the problem. Facebook has notoriously blocked, canceled, shut down accounts for saying things they didn't agree with, for stuff they didn't like. Buddy of the podcast, Chance, has had his Facebook account canceled or banned for temporary periods of time multiple times. Not just once, but many times. Now, that might tell you maybe Chance is saying too many spicy things on Facebook, and also Facebook is perhaps quite restrictive. But I would argue that the Facebook's roots are not free speech or free expression. Like, I would argue that is not your roots, Mark Zuckerberg. I would calm down there.
No, it's not. Their roots were making connections between college students.
Well,
That's what they started as.
Well, even just after that, it was connecting with people across the board that you may not know. It was reconnecting with people from your past, finding connections with people, finding them on Facebook. It's a way to reconnect with people. Like, that's it. Lest we forget during COVID and the blocking content, saying anything critical about the White House and the president and anything going on with COVID, and then all of the blocking of information when it came to Hunter Biden's laptop. Like, all of this happened. Like, it's not a conspiracy. They were blocking that. He himself admitted this in a Joe Rogan interview a few years ago, that they were being told to block certain bits of information, specifically the Hunter Biden laptop story, as well as a bunch of other things. This is not a fake story. These things happen. Mark Zuckerberg told us these things happen. So to sit here and go like, we need to get back to our roots. It's like, what roots? You've always bent the knee to the government and corporate overlords. You were always that guy that was willing to censor people because of information that they didn't like, and you were willing to do it. There's no grounding of free speech. And I think it's because the political winds have shifted, and it's no longer popular or tenable to sit here and go, wow, we've got a political agenda or whatever. It's like, like, why is Twitter doing so much better now? It's because of the free speech platform and the standards that have been put in place, where it's become more of a place where you could speak your mind. Social media, if anything, is where you connect with people and speak your mind. If you can't do that, people abandon it. Who uses Facebook anymore? It's like the old person platform. Nobody goes there anymore. It's a dying platform.
Pretty much.
Needless to say, let's play it.
I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years.
You mean a new election and it's now tenable to change your policies on Facebook? Is that what happened? Mark? With your scary alien eyes and your stupid broccoli hair?
There's been
Lizard
widespread
person.
debate about potential harms from
Yes.
online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more.
You facilitated this, Mark. You did.
Whose fault was that?
A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they
Okay. So, let's
accidentally
Here's Zuck.
censor just 1%
Yeah.
of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards
Yeah, the recent elections make you feel like it is now tenable to have a different policy and change things, because the political winds have shifted away from sort of the left-wing paradigm that we've existed in the last 16 plus years.
once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do.
Okay.
First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes, similar to X, starting in the US.
I wonder why that is. Any reason why they would get rid of the fact checker thing?
Because fact checkers didn't actually check facts. They were politically motivated, and so if you didn't agree with the fact, you censored it basically. And so,
There's a really funny
which is something they
story
were caught doing.
on New York Times, and the title is something like Mark Zuckerberg says fact checkers are biased. Fact checkers say this is false.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the literal title. Facebook says fact checkers are biased. Fact checkers say this is false. I was like, okay. Of course you're going to say it. You're not.
Yeah, it's like
Look,
no,
everybody.
we're totally unbiased.
Here's the problem that has existed with popular media and culture, whether it's gaming, news, across the board. And that's the biggest problem with gaming news, period, is that the news you get is curated by the people producing it, which means that no matter what you do, the content you consume is going to have a bias. And the only thing you could do is either be honest about your bias and try and mitigate it as much as possible, or I guess lie and pretend you're not doing it. And the problem is we've had these fact-checking companies for a long time, and they've always had a political leaning. And Facebook, which has relied on these companies to fact-check information, has been a problem because they've had political agendas. Lest we forget that on Twitter, before Musk, they were banning and blocking people from stating things about COVID. These individuals, being experts in their field, medical doctors and researchers who knew a huge amount of things about COVID, but because these things were being flagged by fact checkers because they were concerned about false information, they were blocking it. Actual experts who knew about the topic were blocked. And that makes me say it has less to do with whether or not the accurate information is being disseminated, but the type of information they didn't want to come out was being disseminated.
Yep.
And this happened everywhere on social media. And that's one thing that this podcast, if anything, would care about is what's happening on social media. Facebook is a dying platform. We all know it's a dying platform. And this is a desperate attempt to try and turn things around and do an Elon Musk sort of reboot. Why? Because no one uses you anymore because they don't trust your content. They know that anything they say on there is going to be censored or dethrottled. I mean, before COVID, one of the most trending topics or individuals on Facebook was Ben Shapiro, who had millions of interactions on Facebook before COVID. It came after COVID hit, they throttled him so much that they had to completely change their marketing strategy so that they were no longer active on Facebook. And this is beside the point of whether or not you agree with Ben Shapiro. The point being that they made a decision that they didn't like the content that was being disseminated across Facebook and completely throttled it out of there. Completely censored topics and information. And it's like, if you want to be a platform where people freely talk about issues of the day, believe it or not, issues of the day are going to be controversial. That's why they're being discussed. So if a topic that is controversial is being blocked on your platform and people can't talk about it freely, you're just going to push them to talk about it elsewhere because it's a topic people are talking about, whether you want them to talk about it or not, or whether you want to control how they're talking about it. And that's the biggest problem with the internet. The idea that they can control discourse and where topics are being discussed and how they're being discussed. And Facebook was at the center of the censoring. You know, it's nice that you're trying to roll this back, Mark Zuckerberg. However, to be a cynical douche, it's a little easy to do now that the political winds have shifted. This conversation, this post would have never happened if the election had gone a different way. And that's the problem with you. When it was hard, Elon Musk decided to shift Twitter. When it was unpopular and the other regime was in charge, at least Elon Musk decided to shift the political winds of Twitter and allow more freedom of speech. You did this when it's more tenable and more popular and easier to do. This isn't brave. This is cynically trying to lick your finger and put it into the political winds to see how it's shifting. Let's listen.
Yeah.
After Trump first
agree.
got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without
No, you
becoming
didn't.
the arbiters of truth.
No, you didn't.
But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially.
Yes, they have. The amount of trust that's been destroyed by not just fact checkers, by the legacy media is almost irreparable at this point. Like the lack of confidence in institutions has been damaged, irreparable at this point. It's absurd.
Especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content.
You brushing your teeth?
What?
Are you brushing your teeth?
No.
Why does it sound like someone's brushing their teeth?
Maybe it's because of my heater. I will turn that off.
But it sounded like a Jason. Did you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it sounded like somebody doing their nails.
No.
Were you were you filing your nails, Silver? Be honest.
No.
Well, that's not what a heater sounds like.
I have no idea what it was.
Policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse.
Yeah, because the political winds have shifted and it's no longer tenable. It's nice of you. See, a lot of people have been like, oh, isn't this great? Facebook has shifted. They have to, because they're dying. Because no one gives a crap about Facebook anymore. And now you're going to have to do a community noting. And I don't know if you've noticed how community notes operate on Twitter, but they're actually weirdly more fair than any fact checker could possibly be.
Basically, it's up to the community, right, to determine whether or not they're.
So stuff has to be cited, and then publicly, people have to rate whether or not it's accurate information. So almost inevitably, it's always true because enough people will push down anything that's sort of quoted. And it's community notes get kind of funny on Twitter sometimes, where somebody has a tweet about something about water. And then they'll community note it where it's like water is indeed wet, fact checked sort of thing. But it's always been.
That's hilarious.
And major news organizations, including the government, will post things and it will immediately get community noted to death because they're like, this isn't true. Like, how many times has the public community noted things coming from like the New York Times? And it's been hilarious to watch them just dismantle stuff posted by major news organizations because it doesn't work anymore. And it's like, oh, well, fact checkers are really biased. I guess we better do what Twitter's doing because everybody's hyped up on Twitter. I always got the impression Mark Zuckerberg considers himself sort of a Elon Musk. What's his name? The guy in charge of Apple, who's dead.
Steve
Jobs.
The problem is he's not that guy. He's not the innovator. He's just the cynical young guy who ended up taking over Facebook. He didn't create it. He's not this brilliant guy who's created these systems. He just happens to be in charge of it. And I don't consider him to be an innovator in any way. I don't think he's a leader. If not, he would have done this a long time ago. And I don't think he's capable of creating anything on his own.
What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions,
yes, it has.
Shut out people with different ideas.
No, that's
and
true.
It's gone too far. So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms. Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action.
So you're basically how a lot of censorship happens, especially on places like Google and YouTube and whatnot, is they basically have these automated filters that are like listening for certain keywords, which is why certain words aren't said on podcasts, which is why we don't say the
M word or the S word or
it's
a whole
like
bunch of them.
Mr. Hilter sort of thing. We don't say we say grape
the funny
instead
German
of
guy
the other word, which really eliminates discourse because it doesn't allow you to even talk about Mr. Hilter in negative ways as being a bad person because you can't have that open discussion because immediately it's picked up by the filters and it's flagged and it's immediately, wow, this is a negative. And it's like, so nobody can discuss these issues openly in any respect because everything's immediately flagged. That discourages discourse. That doesn't encourage it. And it creates things that would normally be shouted down or dismantled into something that's taboo and look into that because they don't want me to hear it. you don't want to create an element where things that are inappropriate become like a counterculture thing. They want to be discussed and disseminated and put down. But once again, he's out of his depth. And these changes, though welcome, to give him credit for that, are quite late to the party.
The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms. We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down.
Like Chance.
Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed, so we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back.
Well, it's because you're eliminating political discussion of things that you didn't approve of. That's the problem. So this had a huge sort of cascading effect across the internet that people have been talking about all week. He's been on Rogan to talk about it. And interestingly enough, he was on Rogan basically saying that during COVID, the Biden administration were calling them up and telling them that they had to censor certain bits of information. We're screaming at his content people, telling them that they had to stop certain things from being put out on the internet. Yeah, we all knew this was happening. We all knew that Jack Dorsey had a weekly meeting with members of the FBI and other policing organizations to prevent certain information from being shown up on Twitter. We knew this was happening. All of this information has been leaked out. Twitter worked hand in hand with the federal government to block certain bits of information that they disapproved of. Facebook worked hand in hand with the federal government. Now, you might claim that they bullied you into it, but you're the one that rolled over and showed them your belly, Mr. Mark Zuckerberg. Yep. You let them do it willingly because you were too afraid to stand up to the federal government, who had no business to tell you what to do. None whatsoever. And now that nobody gives a crap about Facebook and it's the dying platform that no one cares about, well, we got to change things. We got to make it more open. Yeah, more open so people feel willing to discuss things on your platform. That's the problem. When you killed it is when you killed it by killing Discord. But by killing the ability to discuss things. And if you can't talk freely, then why talk at all? Freedom of speech is a big deal, Mark. And it's easy to claim that you're a freedom of speech advocate after everything happened. Tell me that this would have happened if Kamala Harris had been elected. Anybody?
I would doubt.
Yeah, no.
We would not be
this would have
seeing this
happened.
meeting if the election had been different. In this, we could stop talking about the video here, but in this video, he talks about how he's going to be working with the Trump administration to yada, yada, yada. If Kamala Harris had been elected, none of this would be happening. But the fact that the political winds have shifted and you realize your platform will not survive because you're not allowing people to talk freely. Like Twitter's trying to replace everything. They have their own video streaming. We can personally stream to Twitter. I've considered it, but it's like figuring out how to stream to multiple locations, and it might cost money, and this podcast is cheap. Yeah, he went on Rogan, claiming that the administration, the federal government, was telling him what they could and couldn't say, that they had to hide certain bits of information on the platform. And it's like, oh, I feel bad for you, Mr. Billionaire? Like, what is this?
Oh, he lost so much.
Well, stop acting like a victim. Like woe is me. that the federal government bullied me into censoring you. You know who the brave person was who said no when the federal government told them what they were supposed to be doing? That was the brave person.
Yeah.
Not
Definitely.
whatever this is. Now, credit where credit is due. It's about time. But good Lord, Mark. I mean, it almost feels too little too late, but this is the only choice you have. Otherwise, Facebook's dead. I mean, what choice do you have? You're going to have to change. Otherwise, no one's going to use your platform. There are other places to go. It's funny. There was a huge amount of accusations on Twitter before Musk took over of illicit child images, so to speak, that it was a big problem, that the platform was being used to share this stuff. And it enraged Musk, and he created a bunch of stuff to actually go after it, and they dramatically cut all of that out. If you recall, all the left-wing people have been moving to Blue Sky, not necessarily accusing left-wing people, but all of that content, all the inappropriate content is moved there too.
Wow.
Shockingly, that all of that stuff is being shared there as well. And it's like, this could be done so much better. And lest we forget, there's this really douchey video that came out recently of this lady talking about working at Meta. And it's like the easiest, most casual job where she eats gourmet food and then they go play in the music room and then they enjoy a drink while watching the sunset on the roof. And it's like, what is this? These 20-somethings who are getting paid six figures talking about how a day in the life at Meta. That doesn't make me think I want to work at Meta. That makes me think you're a bad company who is wasting money on just leisure and luxury for your employees. It's like the lady who posted the thing working at Google. They would do those videos for people working at Twitter. And you know what Musk did when he took over Twitter? He cut like 90% of the jobs, and Twitter still functions, which makes me think that 90% of your jobs are actually non-important and could probably go. A bunch of disconnected douchebags who live in the coast. One thing that we didn't see on there is the community moderating team. Do you know what they're doing with them?
But
They're moving them out of California because he says they're in a bubble, so they're going to move them all to Texas.
Wow.
Yeah.
okay.
Well, it's like, yeah, you're moving them to
Wow,
Texas. That's an interesting move, but still, you're going to move them to Austin, which is basically little California. So, I mean, calm down there, buddy. But it's an interesting thing that he pointed out. It's like we live in a bubble and we're disconnected from the rest of the country because we all have this self-reinforcing politics and ideology. So we're going to move them out. And it's like, you know what I think you're doing? This makes you sound moral and like you're making a good decision. You know what's probably happening is that the taxes are cheaper in Texas and California sucks. That's probably what's happening. Oh, look at us. We're going to get out of the bubble of California because we're disconnected. Or is it cheaper to conduct business in Texas? Is that possible? Let us remind...
Facebook isn't doing as well.
No. Let us remind everybody all of the massive
Gotta move
businesses
out.
that have fled California. California has been the top state for U-Hauls leaving California to go to other places for 4 years.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
they've been
gosh.
there've been like it's almost a mass exodus from California.
They've been hemorrhaging people. Massive companies, all of Musk's companies, I think he pulled out, SpaceX and Tesla, and he's moved them all to like Texas and stuff. And it's like, I'm not surprised. Why conduct business in California? It's a terrible place to conduct business. And it's on fire. But it's like to claim that we're moving the community people out because they're in a bubble. It's like, one, they are in a bubble. Two, it's because California is no longer viable place to conduct business because it's too expensive. It's a terrible state,
Well,
which should be cut
it's
off and
too
then kicked into
expensive
the
in
ocean.
a lot of ways.
Yes, it is too expensive. But the political winds have shifted. We're going to see a new era of Facebook. I wonder if there's going to be enough changes to actually convince anybody to shift back to the platform and make it a new place that people feel welcome and willing to go to. I don't know. Thoughts overall on the changes at Facebook?
Like you said, too little, too late. They should have been doing this from the beginning. I think this could revitalize Facebook a bit, but
Maybe.
I doubt it.
Silver, what do you think?
I don't think this is gonna help Facebook. I think they've dug their grave too far. It's also
mean-
just so out of the mind of like the younger generation now. No one's thinking Facebook.
What
So
are people
I
thinking?
don't know. I don't think it's gonna help.
What are the platforms?
They're all
that-
about the grams.
The grams, yeah. YouTube is still a surviving platform. It's still a part of everything.
Yeah.
Twitter's the big
No,
one.
I'm pretty
that
sure in the
everyone's
minds
using.
of Twitter. In the minds of the younger generation, I'm pretty sure they all think Facebook's like, oh yeah, that's the
That's for
place
old
that my
people.
mom's on. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. An interesting shift to the political winds. Everything's going, and one election happened, and suddenly everybody's moving. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
it's like your stupid opinions are no longer the majority popular. Anyway, hey everybody, it's News Don't Go.
The Distracted Gamer Podcast. Big steaming pile of news dump.
You know what I didn't do? Now that we've done the news dump thing, I didn't welcome in the Kaiju Monster.
Oh,
Ah,
I've been forgotten.
much like your parents at Walmart, you have been forgotten.
Yeah.
Well, everybody.
Fourth Walmart this week.
The fourth Walmart this week. Yeah, the problem is you keep hiding in those like clothing circle things. You get in the middle of them.
Oh yeah.
No one can see you when you do that. I'm too tall to hide.
No, I'm
in Walmart.
invincible in there.
Well, everybody, we've got a lot of news coming at the news dump. The first news is I readjust everything so that it fits because every website is formatted differently. Twitch viewership is apparently plummeting. It is at its lowest point in 4 years, apparently.
Wow.
Any thoughts on why that's happening? I think it's a dying platform. It has been plagued with like pseudo pornographic material and no regulation, and I don't
I
even
would have
know
thought
regulation
that
is the issue.
pornographic material would have brought people in.
Well, that's the thing. It delegitimized the platform to some degree, and most people have been flooding to
Oh,
like
yeah.
the soft core,
Yeah,
like
you're right. Yeah.
booby streamers. And so nobody who's playing games or doing anything more legitimate feels like they have an opportunity to get people to listen to them. But over the course of the month, the platform accumulated 1.8 billion hours of watch time, its lowest monthly total in 4 years. I've always thought that Twitch was going to die at some point. I don't think it's a tenable business model, and I don't think it's going to last, if I'm going to be honest. Whether or not it does is to be another question, but yeah, we'll see what happens to Twitch. Moving on, there was an interesting commentary to come out of the director of Kingdom Come Deliverance, where he basically claimed that AAA studios are terrified of internet critics like Asmongold and the Critical Drinker, claiming that when somebody starts to critique a game in the corporate world, it does have an impact. I don't think he's wrong. I think a lot of these... Here's the problem. The old school paradigm when it came to gaming was these big game studios went to gaming news, the big sites like IGN, Kotaku, what have you, and they disseminated their information to these sites, and that's where people got their information about the games. Here's the problem. Those companies, the mainstream media outlets for gaming, lest we forget, Gamergate and Gamergate 2.0 happened, where a massive amount of distrust about from these companies, from these media companies, because they were in the pocket of these giant corporations. They were being given money, hand over fist, to give positive reviews. See, that's the weird thing about gaming, which is something I've always beat the drum about. Hey, Parody Mike, how's it going? Gaming news is an odd element, because the problem is with gaming news, they're reporting on consumer products. It's not just really news across the platform. They're reporting on consumer products, which creates an element of money involved. And so it's not surprising that when you have something like gaming news, that when these large companies like Ubisoft or Microsoft or whatever, when they're advertising with them, that there's going to be this issue of money crossing hands because they're reporting on what is essentially entertainment and consumer products. They've damaged their reputation irrevocably, if I can pronounce that correctly. And nobody goes to gaming news sites for information anymore. They go to people they trust on social media, on YouTube, like an Asmongold, or I guess a Critical Drinker at this point. And those voices have far more power and effect on what's happening when it comes to the reception of these games than a lot of these companies would like. And I don't think it's wrong to state that large AAA studios are afraid of internet critics, because they'll look at something and be like, oh, this looks stupid. And that will lambast your potential of your game, because they have a large reaching audience that trusts their opinion. See, that's the thing with like movie critics. I don't care what movie critics say, but I do care if I have one specific individual whose opinion I like or might approve of. Most people see movies because of word of mouth. Things like you hear a movie or a game is good, and you're like, oh, I'll check it out, because you trust your friends and their opinions. And internet personalities like Asmongold, people treat like a personal friend, like somebody that they know personally, even though they don't. And so they tend to trust their opinions far more than an article from IGN that potentially is getting money in their back pocket or given early access to stuff. And that's really the realm we've created. Thoughts before I move on?
Well, I was going to say, especially with the with the way that you were saying that people have stopped going to these gaming websites because they damaged the trust between themselves and the consumers, and now they go to people like Asmongold and YouTube and all that other stuff. That's fitting. The thing is that even in the past, that people would go buy a game because they heard about it, but I would ask my friends, so have you played this game? What did you think about it? And it's just a natural reaction to that fact that we can no longer trust these particular media outlets, that we actually fall back upon those people that we view more like ourselves, which Asmongold, for one, has definitely shown himself to be, genuine. And so because of that, because we haven't detected in him a falsehood, then we're more apt to trust his judgment on these kind of things.
At least his fans are, and people tend to curate.
Yeah.
And that's the thing with the internet. People curate sort of what they consume based upon what they want to hear, for good or ill.
Right.
And so they gravitate towards personalities that agree with their opinions. That seems to be what happens. Alex Jones is shilling vitamins. Hello. He is shilling vitamins. He's angry about the frogs.
Yes, he is.
How's it going there, buddy? Anyway, go ahead, Jason.
Well, we would need the mass media and gaming journalism and stuff. They would definitely have to. They would definitely have to reverse course and eat some crow here to regain the trust that they've lost and maybe bring themselves back up to where they used to be.
IGN
I don't
has.
see that happening,
They've
but-
dramatically shifted how they report on things. Dramatically shifted. It is less political opinions and op-eds and more sticking to reporting on stuff that comes out or giving reviews, which is what they should be. They're a gaming website, or at least pop culture, talk about nerdy stuff in movies. I mean, I don't know why it took them so long to figure this out. At any rate,
hopefully that will put them back in good stead, I guess.
I've been really looking forward to your summer
gosh
out.
dang it, ad. Well, moving on. For the news dump, hey everybody, much to nobody's shock, Assassin's Creed Shadows is delayed again.
Oh my gosh. Okay, how much has it been delayed by this point? I don't have a count.
Another
count.
month. There's some belief, as I live edit this so that it fits accurately, there's some belief that this is going to have potentially a huge amount of damaging ramifications for Ubisoft. They have had very expensive failures recently. And Assassin's Creed Shadows may have to succeed. And if it doesn't,
Wow.
who knows? Who knows how they're going to survive? But yes, I saw some articles suggesting that basically Assassin's Creed Shadows. Let's see. There are rumors that a failure might end up with possible bankruptcy or the company being sold off.
Wow.
It has to be a
That's
winner.
surprising.
I mean, they recently had Outlaws, for good or ill, whether or not you like the game. It did poorly. It had a poor reception, and it was very expensive. Extremely expensive. Also to note, perhaps hilariously and inappropriately, that Shadows was changed to a new date, which somebody figured out corresponds to the anniversary of the worst modern terrorist attack in Japanese history, which might be mildly tone deaf on Ubisoft's part.
Oh gosh.
Let's see. Remember the Tokyo
I
subway
don't think it's
sarin
gonna do well,
attack
guys.
that killed 13 people? Yeah.
Oh yeah, on the subway.
Yeah.
Maybe somebody should have checked that date to see if it had anything going on with what was happening. Anyway. Oh, Ubisoft. You're just a stumble. You're just a stumble over your face all of the time. Let's move on. There's an interesting survey done by Rasmussen to suggest that Disney has lost something like 32% of their support across the board. That 32% of people basically have a negative view of Disney and claim that they won't see anything that Disney puts out simply because of Disney's political views, which they're in the right to do more than anything. But that's a problem for Disney because they need to be I don't know how you would phrase it, across the board, like a general audience company rather than something that caters to a specific political agenda. If you're going to be successful, perhaps. I don't know if that's shocking to anybody.
Not
Also,
a company like Disney, no.
yeah. The Acolyte is apparently the worst rated and viewed Star Wars brand ever. It did worse than not the Acolyte, but Skeleton Crew did worse than the Acolyte.
Holy cow.
Oh.
Yeah. A lot of speculation as to why it's the case. I haven't heard that Skeleton Crew is any good, but I have heard that apparently the speculation is that Acolyte damaged the brand so much that it's damaging any possible future chance of content coming out, like Skeleton Crew.
Yes, I have heard that. I don't know. Skeleton Crew, at least, you tell me if you viewed this a different way, but Skeleton Crew to me seemed like it was getting Star Wars back on track.
I can't tell you if it's good. I haven't
so,
seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either.
I've heard some negative, some positive.
It looked like it was getting back into the territory of this is going to be good Star Wars again.
Well, it does to be succeeded. To give you an idea of how big a failure this is, Skeleton Crew is doing so poorly in minutes watched that it is being dwarfed by things like the Great British Baking Show.
That's hilarious.
In a bit of corporate news, Disney's Hulu is combining with Fubo. I guess they're merging.
Huh.
So I guess the joke across the internet was you are going to be able to watch things like Highlander on Hulu, a Disney property, which I believe Highlander not only has murder but nudity in it. So there you go.
Oh.
No, yeah, this is unshocking. To anyone who isn't paying attention, WWE has moved to Netflix. All of their content is on there, and apparently it's doing very well. It has dominated Netflix charts, overtaking controversial virtue signaling Squid Game Season 2. Squid Game Season 2 seems to not have been received well. And Raw is just kicking butt across Netflix. And I think part of it is that people who don't have cable anymore have no more access to things like WWE, and now that it's on cable or on streaming, I think it's going to probably reach a wider audience. I have not kept up with WWE in a long time, so I don't know what to tell you. Moving on, everybody's favorite Wicked star, Cynthia, really, really wants to play Storm in a future X-Men property. I would ask that the Skeleton Woman stay away from X-Men, but I'm not in control of that brand. Wicked sucks. I hate the play. I didn't see the movie. She seems kind of crazy. Please stay away from X-Men. This is my personal opinion, not not necessarily reported, but she apparently really desperately wants to be Storm. From seeing interviews she was in, she seems to be so insecure she has to hold hands with her co-star constantly in order to get through the
Ariana
interview.
Grande, yeah.
I mean, I wish her luck. I mean, I'm so disconnected from the Marvel movies now. It's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
The thing is that when an actor or actress is like requesting at this point, they're like, "Oh, I really want to play this character. You got to let me play this character." In the past, it wouldn't have been a. It wouldn't have even
it's
been
Ross.
a thing. No question.
It's me.
But
since you show up late, I should
anymore
have a little
now-
thing where it's like Ross suddenly appears or whatever.
A wild Ross has appeared, yeah.
The fact that now when some actor or actress requests something like this, you start looking for the hidden agenda. You know, in the past, it would have been like it would have been the reason that they requested to be that character was because they loved the property and they wanted to basically bring that character to life because they love that property, that IP so much. But anymore now, it's like it's when an actor or actress is grasping like this, you're like cringing away from it because you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. You're waiting for them to put their own spin on it or update the character for a modern audience. And you're like, oh no, please no.
Yeah, I just don't want her anywhere near
it could be that the reason she wants to play Storm is because she really loves the character, but we can't trust that anymore.
No. People say that, and I can't remember who it was, but it was some big director of one of the big franchises. And they were like, oh, are you into comics? And they were like, no, I've never read one. Basically, she had to have her aide read the comics for her. And it's like, oh, so you're just really disconnected. Regardless, to catch Ross up really quickly, Twitch viewership is tumbling. Assassin's Creed Shadows delayed again.
Oh,
Yeah, another month.
what a shock.
Skeleton Crew is apparently so abysmally a failure that it is the worst performing Star Wars brand at the moment.
What?
Yeah,
oh my god.
The speculation
Worse
is
than Acolyte.
that Acolyte killed it. Yeah, that Acolyte so damaged
I
the
was gonna
brand
say.
that nobody's showing up for Skeleton Crew.
Yeah, that and Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Apparently,
Murdered the
WWE
brand.
Raw is dominating Netflix.
That doesn't surprise me. I was hoping it would, and I'm glad it is.
It's performing better than Squid Game Season 2.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Wow. How embarrassing.
And in related WWE, look behind the scenes. In related WWE content, I should probably. So Mr. Seth Rollins was slated to appear in Brave New World, Captain America, and apparently his role was cut. So Rollins.
Oh, that's probably a actual gift for him. Let's be honest.
Yeah, it's probably not
don't be
gonna be a
too
great
sad,
movie.
Mr. Seth Rollins.
He according to the article, he expressed some confusion. I doubt he's confused. It has been reshot so many times. It's just everything's been cut. How can you be surprised? It's the nature of Hollywood. Stuff gets cut, dude. It's just this.
He's just playing kayfabe, baby. That's all. He knows the drill.
I don't think we reported on this last week, so I'm going to bring it up here. Streaming has plummeted 23% in 2024. Just Americans have spent 23% less on streaming.
Well, there's so many options for a while there. It's like, God, I need to cut something. And they all are raising their prices, all of them.
Yeah, nobody can afford to have all streaming.
Well, and, it's just a case of all these different corporations were like, well, why are we selling our product to Netflix or Hulu or whoever when, well, we just do it and we'll make that same money. And it's like, yeah, but if you all do that, you can't make that money.
Right. Because suddenly you're competing against a lot more people.
Yeah.
I mean, it is kind of good for the consumer because eventually we should get a bunch of companies that stop and we get better options. But at the same time, this should drive down the price. But
I'm looking forward to internet cable.
Streaming's a luxury, and it's something that I could see easily cut when pocketbooks get tighter and the economy is not doing well. I mean, inflation
Especially
went
with
up.
all these free streaming apps too.
Oh yeah. Shifting on, apparently Marvel Rivals is outpacing Overwatch at the moment.
that's so cool.
That's crazy.
I would argue that Overwatch, it's sort of weird. I think the gaming community is over the hero shooters, and I don't think Overwatch 2 performed super well. So it's not shocking that a new guy showed up and is out doing it. It's just funny. It's Marvel
it's not like
Rivals.
this is Overwatch in 2017 or whatever.
No, yeah, it's not that Overwatch. Apparently Rocksteady had more layoffs by the end of 2024. Perhaps it has
Rocksteady,
something
no.
to do with Mr. Suicide Squad. that nobody enjoyed.
John Suicide Squad.
John Suicide Squad. And in a story that I think is nonsense by the Park Place, but I'm going to bring it up. So, Mr. Will Smith, William Smithy, posted a
Esquire.
short video
Smitty,
with
his friends.
with a little text on screen says "Wake up, Will." This inflamed the internet to speculate that they are going to reboot The Matrix and Will Smith is going to star in it. I don't think you can
What?
jump to
No,
that conclusion.
no.
I don't think you can jump to that conclusion. Park Place.
What a enormous jump!
Didn't they tease that initially? Or didn't they approach Will Smith about playing Neo originally?
Initially for The Matrix, he was somebody that they wanted to play it, but he didn't end up being the main guy in The Matrix.
Right.
So now everybody's like, why are we still killing these franchises? We need to let them die or whatever. And it's like, all he did is post a thing that says "Wake up, Will," Matrix-esque. Like, let's forget that The Matrix, the text was green and not orange.
Yeah. I mean, isn't
That's
it just more likely this is just his own rebranding since the slap at the Oscars or whatever? I mean, let's be honest.
Could be.
Maybe.
Oh, hey, did you hear the news about the sequel to what was that post-apocalyptic vampire thing that Will Smith did?
Oh, I Am Legend?
I Am Legend, thank you. That one. Did you hear about the news about that? Basically, they're now creating a sequel to that that completely rewrites the ending of the previous movie. So Will Smith's
ending?
character is now alive,
Well, hold on,
and
Jason.
he's going to be in the sequel.
Hold on. The ending had multiple endings. So
I was going to say, wasn't there like
rewrite-
3 of them anyway?
Yes. They had alternate
Well,
endings where he died, and the cinematic release, he dies. In one of the versions on the DVD that they released, there is an ending where he makes it to the survivor camp with the other people. There's like 2 or 3 endings. So it's not that
what they
horrific
did
to think that they're
was
going to
they
change it.
shot the original ending. So they shot the ending of the way the book originally ended, where basically the character realizes he's the big bad boogeyman that the monsters are afraid of now, which is kind of what the original author intended. But when they screened that ending, it tested poorly, so they went and reshot it, and we got what was in the theatrical release and what was released on home video as well. Now, what was released on home video, they also included the alternate ending where Will Smith's character realizes he's the monster. And technically the ending that, like I said, the ending that everybody saw, if they didn't actually go and get the home video release and watch the deleted scenes, they don't know about that ending.
Well, I know.
But that's the ending that they're actually going with.
Well, I know. I'm just saying that the whole rewriting the ending, and I was like, they filmed multiple endings, so it's not that big a shock. Regardless, it was a mediocre film. Like, I'm more of an Omega Man fan myself, where he gets the MP42 and he puts it on the balcony to shoot any of the vampires that come up to his house.
And there's a cool Afro blaxploitation lady.
Yes, there is. And they're more like sentient vampire people, like they talk to him and stuff.
Yeah.
And he basically goes out and hunts the mutated vampire people, and the plot is essentially, oh no, I'm the bad guy that they're all afraid of. The guy that goes out and hunts everybody down during the day.
He's like the Doom.
The Doom.
Yeah. He is Doom guy.
He is Doom
guy.
guy.
Demons.
John Doom.
Mr. John Doom.
Jonathan. Since we have Ross here and we've run to the end of this, Ross, we talked about the massive fires in Hollywood.
Oh yes.
And we addressed the changes at Facebook. Any thoughts on those before we?
I do. I feel very bad for everyone who's affected by the fires. However, I mean, there's a lot of political stuff around that, and I look forward to LA being even more of a horrible realty shithole after the insurance companies don't pay anything. Sucks. I'm sorry, everybody. And then, are we just gonna ignore that? I mean, isn't Zuckerberg doing that, like essentially admitting that he was screwing with everything the last,
Yes.
8-10 years?
Yes, he was.
So,
But
like, he just wants us to, Zuckerberg, you good man. Like, no.
He's pushing it off to a third party, which legitimately the government bullied him into censorship. But let's not pretend
Sure.
that the brave thing to do would have been to stand up to them at the time and not to do it now that the
Yeah.
political winds have shifted. Zuckerberg.
Yeah.
So he's trying to
Fucking
claim
Zucker
some
nerd.
third party has something. It's like, well, sure you were bullied, but you didn't stand up to the bullies. Like the brave thing to do would have been the
No.
Musk thing when it wasn't popular to buy Twitter and thumb his nose at everybody that hated him. Like that's the brave thing to do.
Yeah.
I don't think Zuckerberg is he thinks of himself as like this Steve Jobs or an Elon Musk or one of these big tech guys who's influential, but he's not.
Yeah.
He doesn't innovate. He's not ahead of the curve. He's not changing the paradigm. He is in a dying platform that nobody cares about. Facebook sucks.
Yeah.
And he's
Facebook
trying-
sucked for a long time now.
Yeah, well, he's trying to salvage it, trying to pretend like, wow,
Yeah.
things looking better. See, look at all this stuff we're doing to change things. And it's like, I mean, good on you to change it, but would you have done this had the election been different? I wonder.
Yeah. Had it gone the way you probably wanted it to, pal?
He had
One wonders.
He had a political PAC that was donating money to the groups that were suppressing freedom of speech on his platform. So
God.
it's just
what a
this
jackass.
isn't brave. It's
No.
it's a necessity because things are changing.
Yeah.
It's not a brave.
Mhm.
Well, I think one of the funniest posts is somebody was like, I too, the billionaire, am a victim of the government.
Won't everyone think of me, the billionaire?
It's like,
This
sure.
This reminds me of Monty Python and the Holy Grail and Brave Sir Robin.
He's heroic now. Anyway, exciting news. It's been a busy week. Lots of fire related stuff. How's the things been you for Ross?
Oh, God.
For you, Ross, before we get out of here.
It's been good. I don't think I ever brought it up on the podcast, but I watched Old Boy with my girlfriend a little while ago, and God, that movie's great.
Mm-hmm.
That fight scene.
Just that movie's so stylish and cool, and the ending's so horrifying. Like that movie
You watched
freaking rocks.
The Western one, right? Not the.
No, Korean.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, the original. The Park Chan-woo, is that his name? Anyway. His part of his Revenge trilogy. But
Watch
yeah,
the
that movie
Raid.
rocks. That movie is so cool.
Watch The Raid. The Raid's also cool.
No, The Raid's great. I haven't seen that movie in, probably since it came out. I need to rewatch that.
They did multiple ones, but they're not quite the same.
Yeah, it's like what's that other one? The Protector about the elephant.
Yeah.
Like, first one's good. Fine, you didn't need more.
Well, Tony Jaa has multiple movies where he's trying to save or rescue or whatever and just beat up lots of people. It's like The Protector. It's like they stole my elephant. I need to get it back. And there's another one where they stole the head off a Buddha statue and he has to get it back by punching his way through the mob. And I think there's another one that plays out almost exactly the same, where it's like they steal something, he has to go get it back, and it's like, all right, stop
I
stealing.
like how
from
nobody told Tony
Tony
Jaa
Jaa.
that, like, hey, there's already Operation Dumbo Drop. Like, you don't need to make this movie.
Which had more heart and emotion. When I saw that elephant being airdropped into that Vietnamese village in order for them to survive, because Vietnam.
With Danny Glover.
Or Danny Glover.
And Corin Nemec for some reason.
Operation Dumbo Drop is an amazing war movie, shockingly.
And Ray Liotta. Yeah, it's actually, like, I remember loving that movie. It's pretty good.
Yeah. A true story about the U.S. military trying to get some backwater Vietnamese village in Elephant. Fact.
I need to watch this.
I can't believe you haven't seen it. Of all the movies that your fathers made you watch, and Operation Dumbo Drop ain't one of them.
It's a Disney
I've
shocked.
never heard of this. Don't shock.
Yeah, it is a Disney movie.
Disney.
Yeah, dude, it's a Vietnam War movie by Disney, and it rules. This movie freaking rocks.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
Remember when Disney used to do just a bunch of weird offshoot like films that almost had nothing to do with the Disney brand?
like
Oh, yeah.
Squanto, and yeah, they did a lot of cool stuff.
Remember Angels in the Outfield?
Oh yeah,
When
another classic.
When the kid prays to God that the angels win because his dad said that he'll come home or whatever when the angels win.
Yeah, because his
Almost
dad's
like when,
too busy being a cool leather jacket motorcycle guy to be a father.
yeah, but it's almost like when pigs fly or whatever, so he prays and then literal angels intervene so that the team can win.
So that child could see how big of a loser his father really is, because even after that promise, he ain't being no father.
His dad still
Well,
didn't
yeah,
step up to the plate to, without the pun being really heavy, step up to the plate to help out his
Wasn't Danny
kid.
Glover in that one, and didn't he adopt the boys?
He did. Well, and it's like, I remember at the end, he's like, "Yeah, that's right. That's why I'm adopting you." And then like the little boy that he was friends with, just like runs away crying. He's like, "No, I'm adopting him too." It's like, you weren't gonna adopt him. Don't lie. Like,
Well, my favorite
like what's wrong
part,
with you?
My favorite part, that much like that. What was that movie with the kid that had the elbow injury and could somehow throw over 100 miles an hour and joined a professional team?
Oh my God, what is that movie?
But if you remember, much like that, it's like the kid is an integral part of the team because they bring the kid onto the team because he can see the angels and he tells the coach what plays to do based upon where the angels are hanging out next to which players. So he's like, put that guy in. He's like, no, he's the loser. And he's like, no, put that guy in. The God has chosen him to hit a home run or whatever.
Is it Rookie of the Year?
Rookie of the Year. Yeah. Or Blank Check. Lest we forget Blank Check.
Oh.
He got
Oh
Where-
gosh.
Where
I watched Blank Check in a facts class.
what?
Yeah.
Oh my God! What not to do, kids? Also, here's a child kissing a grown woman, or I guess the other way around. That's
No,
not
it's
weird.
really weird. It was like, for some reason, it was like the only helpful thing I've ever learned in school. They're like, we're going to teach you how to fill out a check. And I'm like, wow, I'll remember this. The
This will
one
be
thing
very
I'll use.
useful.
Yeah. And then it's like, all right, you learned how to write a check. Now we're going to watch Blank Check.
Here's how
Unless
you
we-
commit fraud, children.
Well, lest we forget, the premise of the movie is this mobster hits his bike and the kid's upset. So he just writes him a check and says, have your dad fill it out for whatever I owe you to fix the bike. Because he's worried the cops are listening. He doesn't want to give attention. So the kid just writes in $1 million and hands it in. And they give it to him because there was going to be some sort of pickup thing from the bank where they thought that wasn't that Rob Schneider that worked at the bank, or am I wrong?
Oh God, it might have been. We'll
But
look it up.
anyway, it was supposed to be some pickup guy. They thought it was the kid, so the kid just gets $1 million. And I don't know how he was able to buy a castle with $1 million, but he does.
The 90s were a different time, right?
Well, and then he has that slide from his bedroom to the pool, so he just jump into his slide and then go down. Because whenever you have the inkling that you gotta go to the pool, even if you're in your bedroom. But he became like this massive investor and people just wanted money from him all over the place. And then push came to shove where the FBI finally tracked down what happened and the kid had it, but he spent it all. And then they didn't criminally go after the kid in any way. It's just like, well, you spent all the money,
because
whatever.
it ended up that he somehow convinced them that he was doing it on behalf of the criminals, so they arrested the criminals and let the kid go.
Yeah. The hot FBI agent, as I recall.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and Tone Loke's in it. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Karen Duffy. God, she was so hot. Anyway. And she made out with a child.
She did make out with a child. The dream of all kids watching these movies when you're little.
I mean,
wish I
kinda.
wish I
Yeah.
had $1 million so that a hot FBI agent would make out with me in my castle.
God. Where I have oversized boxing gloves and a wall of TVs.
Do you remember the toy where they bought a black man? You remember that?
Yet
Yeah.
another movie that could never be made.
Oh no.
Oh,
Over
they
again.
they could remake it. They could if they had the will, if they had the iron will, they could make that movie again.
It becomes some like weird producers like dream to remake that movie in the modern age, and everyone's just like, "What are you doing?"
Always had a dream to remake the toy. Or the creepy
Just really want to remake that. Wouldn't it be kind of racist? No, come on.
the creepy Robin
You
Williams
remake Blank
toys.
Check,
Yeah.
but you have
yeah.
to change it from $1 million to like several billion.
For it to
because
mean
of
anything
inflation.
nowadays, yeah.
Yeah.
Blank check is almost meaningless now because of inflation.
Yeah.
Well, everybody, it's
Like,
been
congrats, kid. You can pay off your parents' mortgage. That's it.
yay! It's been a special podcast. I'm glad Ross has snuck in at the last minute, but we're gonna get out of here
Yeah, me too.
as we always do. Jeez, I suppose I could go around. Jason, anything really quick?
Are we gonna do the?
You know what? We are gonna do the thing. We're gonna have the stupid argument. It's fight night.
Yeah.
I have too much to do, and I oftentimes forget. But like I've said before, it's in my heart, if not always on my mind. It's a stupid discussion about who would win in a fight between Monstars, who are going to play basketball for the fate of the earth.
Come on, Charge.
Monstars. I don't know what Monstars we're fighting this time, Jason. You've got like 40 of
So-
them on here. Oh, is it the worm and the
the
dog?
next two-
The uneven fight?
Yeah, this is the one. Shunka against the Mongolian deathworm. So
Against
Shunka
Shai
yeah, against Shai Halud. The Shai Halud's smaller cousin. Name means carries off dogs. So this is kind of like Chupacabra, but for dogs. Wolf or hyena-like, possibly hybrid or prehistoric animal. It's about 4 feet in length, 28 inches at the shoulder. Great Plains and Rocky Mountains area. That's where it came from. And then we have the Mongolian deathworm. Now this is only about 2 feet long. No head or legs. Poisonous. From the Gobi Desert, it travels underground. It can kill by spraying poison, and apparently it also has an electric discharge, like an electric eel.
Oh.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, Silver, what does Chat GPT say?
I am hitting enter now. Let's see. Loading. Okay. This one feels really quick.
Yeah.
In conclusion, the outcome would largely depend on the environment and circumstances of the fight. In open space, the Shunka Warakan might have the advantage, but in a confined underground setting, the Mongolian Deathworm's abilities could turn the tide. Underground setting, I'm not sure about that.
I think the tremor worm's gonna win against the wolf.
Yeah, no matter what, underground setting or otherwise.
Well, here's the thing. How do we set up a fight between two fictitious creatures in a setting that's neutral? Because the Mongolian deathworm has to be in a desert. If you just have it in the middle of a field with some worm rolling around on the ground, then the worm is going to lose. But if it's in the desert
true.
and it uses its environment, then it can get to the dog. So how do you create a scenario where there's a natural parity between two animals that are required to be in certain environments?
I think it would have to be like in Dune or Tremors, where like yes, it's a desert, but there's like rocky outcrops and stuff where it can't get to him, where he can maybe fight from or something.
Okay, yeah. Anyway,
I think
go
that's
on.
what you have to do.
Go on, Silver.
The thing is that the Mongolian deathworm, it's not very big. It's smaller than our Shumkawarakin, but it does have
has
the ability
electricity
to
and
spray
poison powers.
Yes, which means that if it can spray the dog with poison, the Shumkawarakin with poison, it's probably going to win. However, because it is because it's a worm, if the dog can manage to grapple it, it's done for. So do we side on the chance that the dog is quicker and can run circles around the death worm and maybe pounce on it from behind and kill it, or do we say it's got electrical powers and it's got its poison powers and those trump the dog's maneuverability?
I don't think you can surprise attack a worm living under the desert. I don't think that's a possibility. And even if the dog grabs a hold of the death worm, it shocks it because of electricity.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think there's a scenario where this dog really wins, unless you put it in an environment where the death worm is just incapable of dealing with it. I mean,
it's stuck on like a marble slab or something.
Right. I
Well,
mean,
the thing is
there are
that
other
the
monsters
deathworm-
that possibly could have beat this, despite its powers, that are smarter and more clever. But the dog is really just a cute chupacabra. Really, it just kills dogs. It's not like a clever
An
monster.
ambush predator.
Yeah.
True.
Even if it sneaks up on him, that the talk sends the electrical charge. I'm pretty sure the dog's dying before the worm.
But the thing is we don't know if the severity of the shock, for one.
These
It
are
could be
made up
that it's
creatures.
more
We
of
don't know the severity of anything. We don't know the
That's
bite
true.
strength of the Shukawarakin.
That's true.
If we're gonna like go down the road of speculation of what's like how much shock can it's like it's not a real monster. I don't know. My assumption is the shocking thing, much like an eel, is to prevent animals from grabbing a hold of it, which I would assume it would use against the Shukawarakin, which means that in terms of ambush, the Mongolian deathworm has a benefit. In terms of environment, it has to exist in this desert environment. So even if the dog can get onto rocks and then hide away from it, I don't think it's so clever to take advantage of that. It can spit poison while it's on the rock, while it's running away. So the only real scenario is if the dog can grab a hold of it, I guess, and outdo it, but it's going to shock it. Like the Mongolian deathworm is the perfect animal to kill this stupid dog.
Well, if it's a shock like an eel, then it wouldn't kill it, maybe?
Enough to get
No,
it
but
to
it
let
would
go.
probably make it let go.
Yeah.
It would make it let
Yeah.
go, yes, but then then the toxins would go ahead and kill it. But say like the dog really got in there and bit that worm, gave it some wounds. Let's see who's dying first between the toxin and the wound. It's just a waiting game. Who's gonna bleed out and then die of the poison?
I think the poison still wins, even if the dog grabs it and bites it. That dog doesn't make it out. So if it gets poisoned, it's either they both die or the dog dies, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I think best case scenario for the dog is it also happens to kill the death worm, but it's not making it out. There's no way it's going to win.
It has to get really lucky with a mortal blow there in that one bite before it's poisoned and dies.
A mortal blow. Let me at least emphasize
Mortal.
it is sausage shaped.
Ooh.
Perfect shape for dogs.
Well, if dogs are into sausage.
So I guess we're the Mongolian deathworm moves on. The Shunkawaken falls by the wayside here, and we're through with our first round of combats. Next
gosh.
time we will have the Dover Demon against Bigfoot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Silver's
Okay, how can I BS my way
favorite
through this?
creature.
I'm gonna be thinking the next week.
You're such a Dover Demon shill.
Look at my boy. Look at him.
Boy.
This is my baby
My
boy. I'm going to put the Dover Demon out. But at any rate, we've run this podcast
No.
long. We are going to get out of here kicking and screaming. Thanks, everybody, for coming along. We are going to the outro. Goodbye.
Bye.
If you like the show, follow Rhett, Jason, Ross, and Silver, the world's most lethally stupid internet personalities, on Twitter at DG Podcast or on Instagram at Distracted Gamers. If you liked or hated what you heard here today, you can email them at thedistractedgamers@gmail.com and share your feelings. Not that Jason would care, since he hasn't any, of course.
Oh my God, it's so juicy.